Hey guys, welcome back. If you're just following for the first time and you just came across this channel, I welcome you. If you're coming over from my sports blog over at fantasysportsadvice.sportsblog.com, thank you again. This was an amazing week, a great week. I hope you guys took my advice, hope you checked out that blog, and I hope you made that lineup on FanDuel. It was an amazing, amazing week. For me anyway. If you followed what I did and what I said, you should be in the money. And we're just going to get right down to it. This is the lineup that I put out. Sometimes I'll have it over here, sometimes I'll have it over there, but you got to check both of them. And remember, you got to follow on there and you got to subscribe on here. Also, guys, you have pushed me until the 15th rank on my sports blog. I'm trying to get that number one. If I get that number one, I'm going to bump it up. I'm going to give you guys $100 if you get me to number one. I know it's a big task. I need like 20,000 views in the next 3 days. I think we can do it. You've bumped me up from 20, I think this time last week I was like 36th, and now I'm 15. I want to keep going. Come on, guys. Let's do this. So this is your Week 8 fantasy lineup recap from your fantasy lineup you should have used on FanDuel. QB, Drew Brees, he absolutely went off. He killed it against the secondary of the Bills. He completed 26 of his 34 passes for 332 yards and 5 touchdowns. I predicted 4 to 5 touchdowns. Right on the money on that one. Running back, no Sean Moreno. He had 14 carries for 44 yards with his longest carry only going for 8 yards, but his fantasy points did come on 6 receptions for 89 yards and 1 touchdown. He isn't usually known to be a rushing back, but today he had to because the Broncos were down 21-14 midway through the third, where they went on a run of 38-0, and they ended up winning 45-21. He ended the day with 22.3 fantasy points, and Drew Brees had 33.1 fantasy points in QB. Another running back, Eddie Lacy, was doing everything right in Green Bay last night against the Vikings in prime time. He had a season-high 29 carries for 94 yards and 1 touchdown to go along with his 4 receptions for 18 yards on his way to getting 19.2 fantasy points in the Packers' 44-31 victory. He's doing what he needs to do. He is the clear-cut number one back. He's going to get his... You're probably not going to be able to pick him up in your season-long fantasy leagues. He'll probably be taken, but daily fantasy... golden every single week. You can build your own lineup. You don't need to be locked into that same lineup. Let's jump into wide receivers. Jarrett Boykin. He burst onto the scene last week when a bunch of Packers players were injured, and he did have his fair share this week. He didn't have a touchdown though this week. Last week he did. This week he had 5 receptions for 89 yards, which is still respectable, and 11.4 fantasy points on the day. Calvin Johnson. Did you see him? Because I saw him and I picked him. And he didn't have a touchdown, or he did have 1 touchdown. He's back. There's no other way to put it. He was out and hurt a couple weeks. He wasn't being himself. He's getting just a couple points. Yesterday, amazing. 14 receptions, 329 yards, 1 touchdown for 43.9 fantasy points in the wide receiver category. Amazing. He's back. I think he's going to be good. His price is going to go up, unfortunately, for you guys. But this week, if you used him, you got, well, any price would have been bang for his buck. Harry Douglas. He followed up last week's performance with another solid effort because Roddy White was out once again. He did have 12 receptions for 121 yards, but no touchdown. But he did end up having 18.1 fantasy points. I think he's going to do this consistently. It was the Cardinals beating the Falcons was probably the upset of the week because no one saw that one coming, but it happened, and they played catch-up mode for a little bit. That kind of helped Douglas out. So, Julius Thomas, and I want to say I'll bite the bullet in this one, and he was my pick for tight end, and he only ended up going 3 receptions for 29 yards and 4.4 fantasy points, but it is because he got hurt. And what part of he hurt was his ankles, and he's had a problem with those, so we don't know what that means. He might be out for a while. This has been a problem part for him when he's been injured. It's always been his ankle, so we'll see how that goes. Dan Bailey, kicker, he did exactly what I anticipated. He was playing in a dome. Weather was not a factor. He had 2 field goals of 53 yards, 1 for 44, and 3 extra points on his way to 17 fantasy points at the kicker position for this weekend. And defense, although it wasn't exactly the performance I was expecting from them, They did end the night with 3 sacks and a 94-yard punt return from Micah Hyde from my alma mater, go Iowa Hawkeyes. They did end up with 9 fantasy points. And this lineup had a combined total of 178.48 fantasy points on the weekend. If you played in the head-to-heads, the double-ups, and the 50-50 tournaments, you should have cashed in all of them. I cashed in all of them. Tomorrow we'll get the money, or early in the morning, 4 a.m. or so over here. And be sure to subscribe, follow my blog, and check out the giveaway contest over here. Good luck.